How are we all doing this evening? How are we actually doing after that? All jumping for joy? So I'm here, as Eric probably pointed out to you, to provide you the solution. What are we doing to make sure that you guys are going to continue to get a return on your investment? That's what you're probably thinking, right? You're in this not for charity, you're in this because you want an income out your property. So we need to talk to you about what we're doing to support to make sure you will continue to get a return on your investment, because that's the most important thing. Now, my name's Lucy. I work for HomeLet, which is the biggest provider of tenant referencing and rent guarantee products in the UK. So it's quite fitting we work with the Property Franchise Group. Now, before we dive into the presentation, which is going to look at some of the elements of what we're going to be doing to protect you moving forward, I just want to start with something to get you thinking, okay? Now, I'll talk about a story, something that happened when we went into lockdown, when furlough was around, okay? So our rent guarantee book is massive. It extends to about £1.5 billion in annualised rent. So it's just not a small kettle of fish, okay? When the went into lockdown and furlough was around, our insurer had a massive influx of claims. Huge. Now, why do you think that was? Okay. So we've had a couple of thoughts there. Tenants not being able to afford to pay their rent. It was actually to do with the media, shockingly enough. So there was these great things called mortgage holidays. Some of them might take advantage, some of us might have not. But how did the media portray that to tenants? Well, they portrayed to tenants in a way, you can have a 3-month rental holiday. And guess what? Every tenant was on that blower quicker than you can say, you know, lockdown. And what a lot of the time we found is that they were trying their luck. They were sold this narrative in a certain way that made them feel empowered and think, oh, I can get a 3 months rental holiday, so they tried their luck. When we actually questioned them on it, because we knew the government actually enforced a deferral agreement or, you know, a kind of a revised rent schedule to pay back the debt, what did tenants do most of the time? Oh, actually, I don't need that. Don't worry about it. I was just seeing if I could try. Now, the reason that I like to start with that is to talk about the power of the media and the power of the narrative that will go to your tenants, okay? You might have had tenants in situ for a long period of time and you trust them. Why shouldn't you? But what we are seeing is behaviours, people act differently when they are given an opportunity to try something. And so there's two elements of what we need to take into consideration with the Renters' Rights Bill. We need to consider not only if you've got a new tenant moving in, making sure we're protecting you accordingly, but for example, if people are going to chance, then you guys are going to have ultimately the protection as well to make sure that you're confident moving forward, okay? So, who are HomeLet? Well, I've already said we're the biggest in the UK. We do about 1 million references a year. So that gives you an idea of our sheer volume and size. And as I said, our rent guarantee book is extensive. So it was only appropriate that we have partnered with CJ Hole and the Property Franchise Group. Why? Because we want to look at things innovatively. We want to look at things differently. We can't apply the same principles of how we due diligence on tenants that we have for the last 30 years. Society has evolved massively, and so we need to make sure that when we're doing these types of things, we're doing something given the threats that we see out there, okay? Now, that's quite a strong word there, fraud. Who thinks about fraudulent referencing? Keep anybody up at night? Does for me. Fake bank statements. So you guys who are using CJ Hole, you don't need to worry about this because they'll do your due diligence for you. But it's interesting for you guys to have a look at what we are fighting against now, okay? So I'm going to give you an example. Say that I'm dealing with a tenant. That tenant has been in a rental property, one of your lovely rental properties for the last 6 years with their family. They've been an absolutely sublime tenant. However, that rent needs to go up, shockingly, to pay for your costs. So they try and put the rent up, that tenant can't afford it. So what do? You serve a Section 21 to get a replacement tenant. That tenant looks out over the open market and says, I can't afford that rent given how much everything's gone up. and I need to put a roof over my family's head. So ultimately, out of desperation, I'm going to have to make a decision. So what do? Well, I go onto a lovely thing called Google. I type in fraudulent bank statements, and I'll see what comes up. I've got a list here. Got quite a few on there. You'll see Etsy's on here, which I thought was a craft company, which was always interesting. There's one called Template Lab that we know very well. It's an American site. It crops up under loads of different URLs. They have American bank statements and they have English, okay? As a tenant, all I need to do is scroll down, find the bank statement that's relevant to me, click into it. Now, I know this bank statement because I actually use this account. I don't have to put any of my information in, just literally download it. I've not been doing online shopping before you judge me. And I just export it into Word, start editing, remove the logo, and bang, I can start putting my false information in. Does that shock? I know you've just had a crash course in fraud, by the way, which I know you all loved, but does that shock anybody? This is what we're dealing with at the moment. And I kind of consider myself a bit of a fraud specialist, but I'm seeing bank statements at the moment that I can't even pick up if they're fraudulent or not, okay? So there's two elements, again, that what we need to make sure we're doing to protect you. And this is why the partnership with ourselves and CJ Hole is so important. This is why, together, we need to kind of navigate these next steps to make sure that we keep them safe and we keep you guys safe. So again, you've got confidence to remain in this market, okay? Because it is a profitable one. We just need to do the right things to make sure that you guys are confident, again, you're going to get a return on your investment, okay? So what is our solution? Well, again, CJ Hole can benefit from the fact that we actually offer an AI portal in our referencing process. Not a cheap thing, AI. However, straight away, if we drag and drop a document that the tenant's provided into our system, we can see if it's been modified in any way from the original document. Had one last week, actually, very creative. Somebody said they had 6,500 in their bank account. Guess how much they had? 12p. Got to give it to them, right? But this, again, this shows the level of our referencing. And just to kind of add an extra layer to that, we're actually the first provider on the market that uses the tenant's full credit file, okay? If we think about the purpose of referencing and how it's been done for the last 30 years, you kind of do a rough credit search, you go to their employee, you say, do you still work there, X, Y, Z? The problem is there's a high risk of fraud in that process, because I could think I'm speaking to Sally from HR, and I'm speaking to Susan, the tenant's best friend. We need to align the way that we do referencing. We need to innovate it to make sure we're utilising data, things like working with Experian, who we are partners with. And that allows us to have a more granular level detailed view on tenants, where not only can we see what they can, what's going into their bank account on a monthly basis, but we can actually see how much credit that they're signed up to. Doesn't matter if they're earning 35 grand, if that's all going out on finance, you know, loans, whatever, they've not got the net affordability to afford your rent, which is the most important obligation that we need to ensure that they are meeting, okay? Again, no other referencing provider on the market has these means at their fingertips, but that is the reason that we partner with CJ Hole partner with us, because we have the ability to, we have the resources to be able to facilitate this for you, okay? And again, they probably don't shout about it enough, but it's important that you guys know it, because this is a step above, a grade above the competitors that are out there. Now, Eric's beautifully touched on the Renters' Rights Bill. I don't think I'm going to do him justice, but I will try. And we're just going to hone in on a couple of areas which are going to be really important when it comes to rent and how things like rent arrears are going to be impacted, okay? So we know that the period of arrears before legal action can be taken is going to go from 2 to 3 months. We know once that 3-month period is done, once you actually apply a notice, you have to give 4 weeks notice at that point, okay? So technically, a tenant can be in situ for 4 months before you can even do anything. Again, Eric touched upon it earlier. The scary thought is a new tenant, you could go to put them in the property, you could execute the tenancy agreement, they could turn up at the branch and they could say, hand over the keys. You could say they haven't paid the first month's rent yet, and you would still have to hand over those keys, and there's nothing you can do for 4 months. Now, we are telling you this not to scare you. We're telling you this because you deserve to know what the risks are going to be moving into this new world. But the reason that CJ Holt want to do events like this to tell you, so you can make a considered decision about how you are going to be supported moving forward, which is, if you don't have a managing agent, my advice, get one. At minimum, get a level of rent protection. Even if it's the next 18 months, while case law starts to sort itself out and when we can actually see trends in court, make sure that you are supported in this eventuality. And CJ Holt are going to offer a service, which we're going to go through in a second, which we work with them to make sure we're delivering the best in class in regards to some level of protection. Okay? Now, we also know Section 21s are not going to be used. Eric's rightly said it's not a massive volume that we actually evict off the back of Section 21s, but we use it as a backup. So if, for example, there is something that we want to evict on, Section 8 grounds, it's discretionary, it's not mandatory, we will utilise a Section 21 where possible. We won't be able to do that moving forward. We haven't got that safety net, okay? Now, how is that relevant to this situation? So if we actually look at 2024 as a whole, how long did it take to evict tenants? We've already told you about how big our rent guarantee book is. So based on the behaviours within that book, that gives you a very kind of good mean about what's going on in the industry, because we work with everybody in the UK, okay? So it took, on average, about 7.5 months for the first point of arrears to actually getting vacant possession of the property. That was the whole of 2024, okay? That actually grew in the last 6 months of 2024 to 8.5 months, okay? So what we need to consider is, in today's world, it will probably take 8.5 months at the point that you actually applied for possession at a court, you get a court date and you get possession granted, okay? Now let's think of it in a new world where you have to wait 4 months before you can do anything. We're moving over a 12-month period at this point. Again, this is not to scare you, it's to talk to you about what it could be to come and make sure you understand the rationale as to why we ultimately want to give you a level of support moving forward. There is 2 elements of this protection. There's the referencing, putting the right tenant in situ, and then unfortunately, if something does happen, which is most commonly relationship breakdown or loss of job, you are adequately protected in that eventuality, okay? Let's look at a claims example. So we had a claim that went through, it was last year, and the tenant was in basically 2 months of arrears, okay? We applied for a possession order, and we actually got a court date quite quickly on this occasion. It was actually on October the 28th, off memory. Now, the tenant turned up to that court date, that possession hearing, and said, I've not paid my rent, but I've got a defence, but I haven't had a chance to prepare my defence yet to Mr. Judge. What do you think happened in that scenario? They adjourned the case. They said every tenant has the right to prepare their defence. When do we think the next court date was appointed? The end of June this year, okay? So even without complications, it's quite a long span to get a court date. If there are complications like that, it's going to be even longer. And this is the type of figures that you could be looking to lose. So when you actually relate that back into a management fee, into a management fee with a level of rent protection in it, it doesn't look so much, because this is a much, much higher risk, okay? Now, we're going to go for the features of the rent guarantee policy that HomeLet offer, okay? And CJ Holt, you will benefit from this being an extension of their service. Before I go into the specifics of this, I just want to cover two areas. Number one, Eric mentioned pet damage insurance. We have a product that will come to market where the landlord will be the policyholder and give you protection, okay? We will release information about that as the bill goes through roll assent, because we just need to fine-tune the fundamentals of the policy. That will be in place and CJ Whole will be able to provide it to you, okay? Second thing, how many people have insurance with Direct Line? I love that no one put their hand up, even for like comedy reasons. You look at a company like Direct Line, they've got plastered all over, marketing campaigns. We offer rent guarantee for 15, 16, 17 quid a month. Looks great, right? You think Direct Line are a trusted brand, brilliant, I'll go with them. Did you know with Direct Line, they won't start paying out any rent arrears until a valid Section 8 has been served at your expense. So at the moment, that's 2 months. That's me going to 3 months. But if a valid Section 8, again, at your expense, which you'll have to pay for a solicitor to do so, cannot be done, that invalidates the claim. So when we look at these providers out there that look cheap, look too good to be true, they probably are. When we went to partner with the Property Franchise Group and CJ Whole, they went through our policy rigorously because they wanted to know that if there was an official partnership with them, it was going to be a policy that worked, okay? And that's what we need it to do. So there's two elements of this policy. It covers the rent protection, the rent guarantee, so it reimburses the contracted rent while we're looking to get vacant possession of the property back. That's number one. The second element of the cover is the legal side, okay? So if we can use the Direct Line example, if you made a claim with Direct Line tomorrow, what would happen is you would get sent to a third-party legal company that you have no relationship with, and all you would do is chase that legal company for updates. No personal touch, again, no invested interest in you. What we do here at HomeLet is we have an in-house litigation team, okay? And all we do day in, day out is property law. So imagine the case law experience that we have. We're not like a solicitor down the road that does a bit of property law, family law, environmental law. We are specialised in one area, and that means that you guys are going to benefit from that. And again, by the partnership that we have with CJ Whole and Property Franchise Group, we have a commercial invested interest to make sure this product and this legal service delivers in the way that it's depicted on here and how we promise, okay? So the rent protection covers up to 15 months of rent arrears or until vacant possession, whichever is sooner. We cover up to 100,000 in legal, but again, we have in-house litigation team that deal with it. So you don't need to go to a solicitor and organise it and then claim back that money. When CJ Whole ring you and say, unfortunately, worst case scenario has happened, the tenant has fallen in rent arrears, they will follow up that statement with, but don't worry, as part of your service, we will reimburse you, so you'll still get your rent on a monthly basis, and we will liaise with HomeLet litigation team to make sure that we've got the best possible chance of actually getting vacant possession as soon as possible. So you guys can sleep at night. All sound good? Good. I'll just pop this down now. No. So if, for example, people on universal credits, if they're students, any one of them, we've got actually an arrangement with CJ Whole that any tenants in situ at the moment that we will, on a one-time basis, offer a policy on inception as long as they're not in arrears. So take it while you can, because moving forward, it will have to be that they're acceptably referenced. So you've got a massive opportunity here.
So if they're professional tenants to start with and then become benefits tenants, it won't
No. So it might be on renewal that we would ask for an additional due diligence, but it wouldn't null and void the policy, no. And at the moment, the policy covers overstay of Section 21. So Eric's already made reference to, as soon as the Renters' Rights Bill comes in, Section 21 will not be a thing. But while it is now, and if the tenant, you do serve notice on the tenant to get the property back, tenant doesn't vacate, you can claim on the legal side of our policy. So that is something that's enforceable at the moment, okay? Now, just to conclude, a lovely picture of our CEO, Andy Housestead. I'm not going to try and do an impression of him. I won't do him justice on what he says here. But what I just want to point out is the size of us and the fact that we partner with 5,000 letting agents. That's not a small number when you actually think of the pool of letting agents within this industry. The reason that we partner with them is because, again, we don't just do things the way they've always done before. We understand that things are evolving. We understand the industry is evolving, and we need to make sure that we are innovative to make sure we're going to deliver you the best service that we can. And again, the most important thing, and I keep banging my head against the brick wall saying this, it's our responsibility to give you guys the consumer confidence that this is a viable investment. And it is, and it will continue to be. We've just got to make sure that you take our advice in protecting yourself in two ways, doing due diligence on the tenant, but if worst case scenario happens, you've got something to fall back on, okay? Has anybody got any questions? I will be here after, so if you're embarrassed and you don't want to shout out now, you can ask me after. No? Amazing. Thanks all.